Nikita Zadorov asked about his thoughts on Jeremy Swayman sticking up for his teammate.
That dressing room is toxic. And NHL players are different. Whatever.
We need Dr. Phil.
Oh man,
we need an intervention.
I've never I've never heard that before. Like from a guy who's on a team with a player. Like, all right, he's sticking up. That's what we do here. We get each other's. Even if you don't like the guy, you're supposed to say, hey, great job by Swayman. But the fact that he's like, whatever.
Is that what he was doing?
Oh, no comment.
It is a bizarre comment. Maybe there's a language barrier thing there, Curtis. Are we missing something?
Yeah. I don't think it's a language barrier, but I have to say on March 25th, 2025, the year of our Lord, seeing Greg and Wiggy continue a sports debate in the hallway filled my bucket.
You know why? Because I can't wait for Thursday for Millbury. Because I was on this from day one. I was already kind of like, ticked off a little bit at Marchand for him even interjecting himself into Swayman's contract negotiations.
Okay. And by the way, that's a guy, Brad Marchand, who consistently took less money than he could have gotten elsewhere.
He didn't, though.
His fault.
He got an 8-year
to play
deal
for the Bruins.
He got an 8-year deal. He played through the whole 8 years.
Yeah, but Curtis, if you look over the length of his career, he took less money.
Guys don't like that. That's his fault.
That's his fault.
Yeah, and guys don't like that.
That was what our argument about is.
Yeah.
You're saying that guys on that team didn't like that.
Yeah. Didn't
like when Patrice Bergeron took less money than he could have gotten. Okay.
Because
you didn't like it. You didn't like it when Tom Brady did it.
Well, no, I don't like it. No, I didn't like it with Tom Brady.
Did you ever say anything to him about it?
Well, no, he wasn't at that point yet. But if I was on his team, you're not going to say anything to the guy. But players don't like it.
Ty always says that.
Yeah, unless you're at a certain position, because what it does, it's supposed to set the market for the next guy. But if one guy's willing to take less, if Brady's willing to take less money, or Patrice Bergeron, what do you think the GM or those guys are going to say when somebody goes in there to try to do a contract? Right. They're going to go, well, if Tom Brady's taking less, don't you think you should be taking less?
Right.
And
you're the better of the team.
Yeah, and Tom Brady's the greatest, the greatest player, and Bergeron's the, one of the top players in franchise history. And you're like, well, maybe I should.
This is Steve. Steve, good morning.
Hey, good morning. So I enjoy your show very much. I may have missed some of what you guys have been talking about because I don't get the opportunity to listen all that often. But last fall, you guys were talking about a moment that Charlie McAvoy had. That moment was the moment the Bruins signed Jeremy Swayman. From everything you guys have said about him, for what I've read about him, from what I've seen of him, he is the most self-grandizing, self-flatulating, narcissistic, pompous putz in the history of mankind. He is the cancer to this team. I'm telling you, that is the reason Charlie McAvoy said we had a moment.
Yeah.
This guy is brutal. He's cancer.
Okay. Well, I think there are some who believe that. I think there are some who are now coming to terms with the issue in that locker room may be Jeremy Swayman. So,
but all the hockey people will tell you, or at least Mike Milbury, he's the hockey guy that we talk to, that he's not really the issue with their team, right? Has he played as well as he played last year? No, but he's 26 years old. He's not the issue moving forward.
Wiggy, what do you say is always the issue in relationships? It's either sex or money.
Yep.
Or cars.
Nope,
sex or money. In this case, it's money.
Yep.
Sometimes it can be flatulence.
That sure is.
For you, it is.
But the thing about the Bruins and where they are, I really believe that if Marchand had been extended this past offseason and he wasn't entering a walk year, that he would have nothing to say about Swayman and his deal. I really don't think so. And clearly, Marchand was asking for more than market value when he was negotiating with Sweeney prior to the deadline.
And that's why he was such a stickler for his number.
So then why is he able to call out Swayman for getting his worth, but he's begging for more money than I think he's worth, getting a raise at 38 years old, and that's fine?
Yeah, that's pot meet kettle, right? And that's the number one rule in any locker room, in any sport. is you stay out of your teammates' negotiation when it comes to their contract. If Swayman has to hold out in order for him to get his money, then that's what he has to do. And as a teammate, you should support him for that because he's trying to take advantage of where he is in his career to make the best possible piece of change he can make. Were they complaining about Pastrnak when they were far away, the Bruins and Pasta's camp?
David Pastrnak did not hold out.
No, I know that.
And miss a portion of the season. And tell me the last Boston Bruin who held out and missed a portion of the regular season.
I couldn't tell you.
You can't because it was a culture thing.
But they made a legitimate market offer to David Pastrnak, which is why he took the offer.
Yeah,
they weren't doing that with Jeremy Swayman.
Listen, I'm not advocating for either side. I'm just telling you that there may have been guys on this team who felt like they had a culture thing here, which was that Patrice Bergeron, it's Patrice, David Krejci, and Brad Marchand took less money than they could have received elsewhere.
It's Bergeron.
It's Patrice. Because they wanted to stay here and play for this team. That's all.
I think Brad Marchand got a great...
And Scheim always talks about the past offseason and how the Bruins made a lot of moves. Who that they paid this past offseason has really moved the needle for this team instead of them maybe keeping that money and just giving it to Linus so that you have two goalies that make each other better?
Neither of them. But I don't think Lindholm or Zadorov have been good.
So then there you go.
But Linus wasn't going to take less money, Courtney. Do you think
it is the issue here? I think that is the main issue here.
The issue here is that there is a clear divide in the locker room between guys who want to make the most money they can and guys who want to stick to that old Bruins way, which Greg is right. There was an old culture there where it's like, Patrice Bergeron is our best player. You're not making more than Patrice Bergeron.
Correct.
You have to take 6.75 instead of 7. And that was the culture. That is no longer the culture now, and there is currently a shift going on in that locker room, and there is a massive divide because of it.
And you're not going to pay two goalies $17 million each playing half the season.
No.
When the cap is actually hard in the NHL.
Well, it seemed to work for them.
It would be $18 million because
they were paid less than $4 million combined last year.
Okay, I'm just saying that we're in an absolute crapshoot right now, so I would like to go back to the old ways.
But even if you had Linus Ullmark, like that wouldn't change the result of this team. There would still be a clear divide.
They have
almost identical stats this year.
But they made each other better. They're not playing together anymore. That's the whole thing.
But Courtney, we're trying to say to you,
I don't care what you guys are trying to say to me. I've just been
$8.2 million.
I don't care. It's not my money. It's not yours.
But you think Linus was going to stick around for $4 million when he knew?
I don't know. I don't talk to Linus, and neither do you. I'm just saying that these two players made each other better, and we saw a completely different team when these two players were on the same team.
I think what made Jeremy Swayman better was when he did not have to be your go-to starting goaltender.
Bingo.
And there was no... Correct, Courtney. So
how do you look in the playoffs?
You can't have two $8 million goaltenders on your hockey team.
But how did Swayman look in the postseason when he was the go-to goaltender?
He was
excellent.
He was.
And how well can you play?
He invested for half of the season, Curtis.
Well, and how well can you play when your defenseman clearly doesn't want to play in front of you? How good can you be as a goalie when your defensemen don't want to play in front of you? Like he said no comment about Jeremy Swayman, quote unquote, sticking up for his guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's a clear difference between the player opinion on this and the fan opinion on this. The Wiggy knows the player opinion. That there's a text here that says holding out is the most selfish thing that anybody can do. Look at Brandon Ayuk, held out, wasn't ready when he came back. You see it all the time, and it just interferes with.
But Swayman
signed before the season?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, like 2 days.
That's before the season.
And he didn't start until 2 weeks into it, Curtis.
But in the NHL season, that's no big deal.
So what's
it is here.
But what's worse, Greg? A guy holding out, or the ownership or the front office not giving him fair market value? If you just give him fair market value, guess what? He shows up, and then he doesn't have to hold out. If you give Brandon Ayuk fair market value, guess what? He doesn't have to hold out. If you gave Swayman $8.2 million at the beginning of the offseason, he don't have to hold out. But it's the team trying to penny pinch and squeeze as much money away from these guys as possible. And the only leverage a guy has when he plays well is to hold out. That's his only leverage.
And when did Linus Ullmark sign that deal that was $8.25 million a year? Because my guess is it was before Swayman, and is there a better example of what the market was?
October 9th was when Linus signed that contract, so it was after Swayman.
Oh.
Yeah, it was after Swayman.
So then that's what they were.
But it was like
Swayman
almost
to
right
set the
after.
market.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So they
Well,
clearly.
and Swayman said that one of the reasons he said he held out was to set the market for others, like he wanted to be somebody who was doing that for other.
Swayman
goaltenders.
was October 6th. Linus Ullmark was October 9th.
And when did Swayman make his debut?
I don't know when
This
that
is
was.
Andy from Hudson. Hello, Andy.
Greg, what's going on, brother?
What's up?
How are you?
What's up?
Nothing, just a couple of things. The Bruins, like Freaky just said, are awful with the front office. They could have signed Pasternak probably cheaper if they signed him earlier. Them waiting to sign people at the end is awful. But as far as the culture goes, trading Marchand, the Bruins have nothing to say about the culture up management-wise because they have just destroyed the culture of this team. And I read an article yesterday about Don Sweeney. If he doesn't nail it on the draft, it's going to be gone. Why would you trust Don Sweeney to nail it on the draft when he hasn't drafted anybody?
So you would say that when it comes to the culture, that Don Sweeney is the one who has destroyed that. All right.
Swayman played in October 10th.
Curtis, what is your point? You want to prove what? What are you trying to prove? You've been spending 10 hours on it. What do you want to prove you're right about?
I'll just leave it alone.
No. It's fine. I deal with it every
clearly
single
not
day.
fine.
I hear it Saturdays. What is it that you want to prove when he started? Go ahead.
Whoa, what do you hear on Saturdays?
What is it that you want to prove?
Nothing. I want to
You
talk
want to prove
puck.
that you were right about when Swayman started? When did he start?
He started the season October 10th.
Okay.
Missed
How
one
long
game.
into the season was
One
that?
game.
Okay. All right. So you were right about that. I
You
said
seem to be happy
I
about
said
it.
I said it was 2 weeks. You got me.
You
Sean,
know,
if
actually,
can you record that for Curtis so we can listen to it at home?
Definitely, I'll send
Okay,
it to him.
thanks.
I'll air check it and send it
Appreciate
over. You got it.
Thanks.
You know,
He's
actually,
very, very obsessed. Takes him 15 or 20 minutes to prove his point, but he got me.
you know, actually,
Mark it down, please, if
Bro,
you're
the
keeping track at
culture.
home.
Can we
What's
get back
up?
to
The panties are in a bunch.
What do you want to do?
Take
Get
the
back.
notes.
What do you want to do? Get back.
You know,
to the,
actually ruined the
want to get
culture.
back to what we were actually talking about?
Patrice Bergeron.
You're crazy.
Should have traded Bergeron.
He
with
was
you. You were
so
right.
good of a captain, and he took less, and he was like, and then when you went from Bergie to Marchand, his style was different.
Yeah, Wiki, you want to know who this team really misses? Zdeno Chara. They never did this in front of him.
I think Bergeron would have sat down with Swayman and said, "Hey, listen."
Definitely.
What,
Here's
you would have
how-
sat down and told him how to do it? And how
No. He might have said, "Hey, listen, I understand the direction you're going in, but maybe think about this, think about that." Bergeron wouldn't have went in the media and been like Marchand did.
Well, Marchand was asked about it. He didn't go out of his way to say
but
it.
still, you can word it perfectly.
No, I agree with you because Monty used to say that all the time. That Patrice Bergeron did all the coaching. He didn't really have to talk to the guys because he would pull people aside. You're right
because
about
that starts a divide in that locker room. When Marchand said that about Swayman, it's like, really?
So he should not have said that publicly about Jeremy Swayman.
No, if you got an issue with the guy, sit down and then you can have a conversation. And then Swayman's going to say, "Listen, Brad, just like you, I'm trying to get paid. And you've been in this business. They're trying to take as much money out of our pockets as possible. This is my only recourse, Brad. You got to understand that." But then Brad goes right to the media when asked about it and is like,
That's not the way we do it around
right.
here.
And Swayman's looking at him. And then if there are guys in that locker room like Pasta who goes, "Hey, listen, I dealt with this before, Swayman. I get your point. Brad shouldn't be saying this." It creates a divide in that dressing room.
Here is Mike from Framingham. Hello, Mike.
Good morning. How are you?
What's happening?
When a player holds out for a large contract, it's not necessarily a problem when they perform. The problem with the Bruins is Swayman stinks. I'm not sure if he's the worst. I'm not sure if he's the worst goalie in the NHL, but he might be. And if you got one more second, let me talk about something you talked about yesterday.
Yes.
If you want to hold the Celtics team together, sit down with Tatum and Brown and renegotiate their contracts and spread their money over 10 years after just like they did with Ohtani, just like they did with Bregman, renegotiate and spread the money 10 years out.
Yeah, but you can't
Thank
do
you.
that in basketball, Mike. You can't do that in basketball. They have max contracts. You can't spread